There you go.
All right, thanks. Yeah, so I started just kind of talking about this whole radical freedom parenting and radical unschooling. I've recognized on this path that the word radical is really significant because there are levels in this, and I I I I feel that if you're called to this, which it's happening, it's a real paradigm shift, you know. But there are extreme. The radical is really there is there is no sandbox. There is no box. The If you take the word radical out of it, it's out of the box. And all there's all kind of, all of that is welcome and it's great. I mean, one, just stepping out of the box and being curious and willing to parent in a freer way, um, to allow the children to be who they are, to nourish that natural born confidence that they're born with, that expression, that trust in themselves, that gets kind of um, it gets kind of pushed out of us in the authoritative parenting paradigm, which is pretty much all we know for the most part. That's how we were brought up. That's how our parents were brought up. That's how most society is parenting, even in this day. But there is quite a movement in this. It is a total paradigm shift. It's a whole different reality. And the difficult part of it, or the challenging part of it, but there's so much support and guidance and your own sort of recognition and realization as you step onto this path that you can have one foot in one reality and one foot in the other reality, one being this radical freedom parenting and schooling, and the other one being the traditional authoritative paradigm where school is important and it matters and that's what counts and that's what qualifies your child as a good and smart child or not good and smart. And perhaps when you start exploring this, you have one foot in each, but it's very quickly and easily that you just take that foot out of that other paradigm and you land in here. And I'm not saying there's no challenges in here, but I'm saying that the majority of the challenges is your own doubt in the process. And because the doubt in the process is reflected in the outside world, like how can you allow your children to go to bed whenever they want? What kind of parent are you? How can you let your child be on his screen all day except when he's sleeping? So I am very lucky and I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to be where I'm at. We live in a little bubble in the northern Arizona desert. Our families are far away, even though they're very supportive. It's radical. So we don't have a lot of that influence or judgment or monitoring, like, oh, your child doesn't go to school. Well, let's see. I'm just going to wait for him to fuck up and then see, I told you school is important and you're doing this crazy parenting thing, so it's difficult to have that. And that's a big thing, like people who are living in this. Well, let me just complete that other thought. So being able to live like that, and it's almost like we're in in a lab. How's this going to go? And there's not much outside influence except when you need it. And luckily I had a wonderful mentor, Dana Martin, who's kind of a pioneer in this field, and she was the only one that could really just bring it back to trusting and the guidance. And she spoke to my husband as well, because I was a little bit looser with it. I was a little bit more trusting with it in the beginning, especially when you have a partnership. And he was like, what if we're fucking him up? What if we're ruining his life by not making him go to school and learn stuff that you're supposed to learn when you're supposed to learn it? So it was a process, but there was this one point, and I think it was when that one foot finally came out of that other paradigm and just was fully into the no box paradigm, that it was just almost magical, like how things just flowed, and as they say, the proof is in the pudding. Our lives are so, I say, I feel like we're on summer vacation all the time. And there's no reason why it doesn't have to be that way. I'm not saying that it's not easy. Life has its challenges. Parenting has its challenges. I am fortunate to have one of the most intense, challenging kids. I mean, he was intense before he even came out. Already in me, I was like, dude, chill the fuck out. I am holding you in my belly. I can't handle this too much longer. Anyway, so it's been a really challenging, but also very real, and in the sense that it keep going back to like, where do you get resistant and fearful, and that's your own, that it's so obvious. It's like, oh, because the fear of the future, or fear of what other people will think if my kid turns out like that and everything, and fear of like, I'm going to be seen as a bad mother, or I am a bad mother, and the presence and the pureness and expression and trust in who they are, it's like almost it turns the switch off. Like, okay, that's all bullshit. That's all story and conditioning. And so let's just turn that off for a minute, or turn it down if you can't completely turn it off, and focus what's going on here. And it's like the whole scene completely shifts. We're always assuming, not in general, where that kids have, we're assuming that what we think is going on with them is what's really going on with them. What we think their intentions are is really what it is, because we're their adults and we're their parents, and we know. And I've noticed, by coming into that and trusting my kid, and showing me that he's showing me that I have to listen to what's happening right here, right now, 99% of the time, they're on a totally different experience and expression and needs and then we project on them because of our own conditioning. So in trusting that, even if I don't believe it, because there's no way that could be what's bothering him or it doesn't matter. It's what he's saying, it's what's happening. And by me trusting that, it allows him to trust himself, to be his own gauge and ruler of his emotions and his thoughts. That's another part of this that is huge. This way of parenting is not just the freedom for them to explore life and learn following their according to their interests or curiosities, but also the freedom of mind, the freedom that we don't have to be knowing what they're thinking or what's going on in their minds or how they're learning. I mean, this is something that we never had. We never, every time we were in school, our minds were constantly, rated and judged and compared to other minds, as how good we do compared to the others, and how good we should be doing and how we should be thinking. And then when you go home and you have your private time, like, what are you watching? What is going on? It's, if you're upset and your parents get concerned because you're upset, that they're prodding you and telling that, allowing that to go and to be what it is, and you have no business in there. You can trust their development, and what I've noticed is that they learn to communicate in such an authentic way when they're ready, and if they're ready. So it's not like this way it has a goal, eventually he's going to tell me what's going on in his mind, or no, it's irrelevant whether he does or doesn't. But when he does, it's really, he's, and then he comes for really, okay, I trust you because I know you're not trying to control my mind and how I should think and how I should behave. So I trust you to tell me what I need right now, like, coming for advice or support, things that happen with friends or doubts or even his body, that he knows he can come to us and we will be authentic and not try and manipulate to in any way, shape, or form. So there's this trust that builds, and then that in turn allows them to trust themselves. And sometimes it gets really heated because he's 12 now, in this example, and sometimes he knows better than we do. And we know better than he does because we're the adults, right? But it's that recognizing that for him, that's what's going on. And who am I to say that that's not what's going on? That I know better because, in some cases, of course, you've had more experience in this life and, in the world, but they know when they need that kind of guidance. They don't need the guidance unless they ask for it to know what, to experience what they're experiencing. Sometimes he wants to make something in the kitchen and he's not very handy with his body, and so he's messy and or he can be anyway. And I literally cringe when he goes in there and I'm gonna do this, and everything he's doing is like, no, don't do that like that, don't do that like that. No, that's not how you do that, that's not how you beat an egg, that's a. And then I thought, man, our whole lives as kids and even as adults in some cases, we were told how to do things right. And there's one way to do things right and a gazillion ways to do things wrong. No wonder we're so fucking stressed out and anxiety and everything, right? So what if we were allowed to explore and find our own way to do things? Maybe we will come to that one way just because we come to it by common sense, by our own exploration, or maybe we come to a completely different, innovative way to like scramble an egg. Like, who would have thought of that? Well, that kid was 10 and was allowed to explore in the kitchen. So I think about that at times. How we are all so unique. We all have our expression. We all have our place in life. And our whole childhood with the school system and the parenting system were made to be all the same. And if we're not, if we don't fit in, it's challenging and we might be punished. We might feel inadequate. We might feel, gosh, like there is no place for us in this world, and, suicide or other tragedies that occur. So that's why I think this is such a huge, important shift that's happening, because how our children are parented and how their individuality and trust in them, so they know to trust. I mean, they trust themselves. It's only once the parents are, oh, you're doing this wrong, and da da da. How'd you get an F on math? I thought you studied. Then it starts to fade away, and you need other people's validation to feel okay. You need somebody outside of you to tell you you did good, to feel you did good. And if they tell you you didn't do good, you're ruined for days or months or years. So the shift in that to really parent this way, because they will be these kinds of people in the world, and allowing their creativity to flow and to trust themselves and to trust each other, and then their kids will be that way, and so on and so on. So another thing about this is that everything in our upbringing, especially in the school system, everything is focused in preparing us for the future. And if we really look at it, even our parenting is sort of programmed that way. I mean, I know I went through a lot of this stuff until I was able to let it go, about fear of food, for example. The fear, if he wants his third cookie, the fear isn't about that third cookie in the moment. The fear is about the future. If I let him have this cookie now, he's going to get used to eating too much, and he's going to get diabetes, or he's going to be overweight, and he's going to have all these issues, and da 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 da. It's 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 all like future fears and control. You know, you get bad grades in school, ooh, you're gonna end up in jail. That's clear, you know. So this way of parenting, it's all about the moments. And one of the things I used to do is Zanio that, oh, I love your blanket. One of the fears that one of the things that was a tool for me, because I worked a lot with death and around death as a hospice volunteer and writing that death monologues and all that business. But because once I might be off tangent, but it's kind of not. Once I started living in the awareness that death is like right here all the time, it became my friend and it became my way of really being like right here. We don't know it. It's gone like that. So whenever I got caught,
Absolutely.
yeah, right. Whenever I got caught up in these fears about if I let him stay up tonight or if I let him watch this movie because he really wants to, but I'm not sure it's appropriate. I always would think if I was going to die tonight, or even more so, if he was going to die tonight or tomorrow, how would I respond in this moment right now?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I'd let him have that third cookie. Of course, I'd let him watch whatever movie he wants to watch. And for me, that keeps it real and that keeps it in the moment. If I need that tool nowadays, it goes pretty easy in that way. But recognizing that so much of the way we were parented, the way the school system functions, the way most people uh, function in the world, it's always fear of the future. You have to do well in school or else you're going to have a terrible life or you know that kind of thing. Well, what about if,
And keeping up with the Joneses.
what's that?
And keeping up with the Joneses.
Right, right.
You know,
Yeah, the next
trying
thing.
to keep up with someone else's life instead of your own.
Exactly. The comparing, and that's how we're brought up. You got an A, you're a good student, you got an F, you're a bad student. It's always comparing. I mean, so what if you could if what does that mean to live a life as if school does not exist? That's pretty much what unschooling is. Radical unschooling. It's not homeschooling, it's not anything. It's just there is no such thing as school.
Really?
Yes.
Don't you have to in America, don't you have to make exams in the end of the year or
If
something?
you're in school, there
No,
there
if you're not in school, I mean.
no,
The kid,
it's there's always a way to stay under the radar. Okay, but I know that in certain countries like Germany and Holland, there's it's illegal. It's against the law to not. So and I have stuff to say about that, which I will in a minute. In America, it's different for each state, and I think there's even in Holland and stuff. If you're in a country that it makes it illegal to do that, I would suggest looking into other groups that are doing this because it's going on. So some people might have found a way to get out of it and to stay under the radar kind of thing in those countries.
no, in Austria, you can teach your kid at home by yourself, but you have to make some exams. I don't know, every half a year or something.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
So that's a way, and in the states. In the states, it's different. Each state, I know one of the things, if it's allowed to homeschool in the states, I think most of them, if not all of them. So if that's an issue, you just say you're homeschooling them, and then they pretty much leave you alone. Uh,
You
so
don't have to make any tests.
no,
No?
no,
Okay.
I didn't know that. I was thinking that you had to, or at least
yeah.
something, you know?
Yeah, something. Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends on the state, and it depends how. It depends, and I'm not saying the way it's worked for us is I know it's not the way it works for everybody as far as the logistics and and not being in trouble with the state and all that. but there's lots of families, lots and lots of families, even in places where it's against the law doing it. So there is lots of support for that
Yeah, okay.
in finding out. Yeah, even in Austria, I'm sure there are people not taking tests. But yeah, or you just take it for them, you know. Okay, yeah, I hear that. Yeah. But so what does it mean to live a life as if school doesn't exist? It means you're in a cooperation instead of a competition, right? Because you're cooperating with the world around you, with your family, with your friends. In school, it's all competition. It's constantly being judged, like
Mhm.
everything, especially these days where there's so much going on with kids that they're being, you know, labeled this and that and on medication and this and that. It's just being a kid, but it's just gotten so intense and tight.
What they wear is a real issue, you
What
know,
they
how much,
wear.
yeah, how much money that they have and what school you go to, and yeah, it's really sad.
Mhm.
Yeah, and even like judged and scrutinized by teachers. For example, my son had a friend who was very aware of his sexuality at a, I don't know, 10 years old, 11 years old, openly gay, comfortable, and he wore you know, a normal t-shirt that was cut off, so his belly button was showing. And when they were on the playground, when it was recess, the teacher, God, I hear this story and I just cringe. The teacher came up to him in front of his friends during the recess and started to like tease to open her blouse and say, how would you feel if I dressed, you know, like this? How would that make you feel uncomfortable? Or I mean,
Oh.
come on. There's
Whoa.
one thing approaching, I know it's one thing, and there's one thing approaching, if you don't feel it's appropriate because it's distracting or it's too much. I understand there's certain boundaries perhaps, which doesn't happen if you're not in school, but that you can express that in a very authentic, mature, respectful way instead of embarrassing and threatening the kid, really. I mean, that was horrible.
Hmm.
So life without school, it means you're not being judged and manipulated. Your behavior doesn't have to be approved. Every little thing you do has to have permission before you do it, even going to the freaking bathroom, all this kind of stuff. So you learn cooperation, you learn to engage with the world around you. You learn cause and effect from your actions because it's not somebody controlling your every action. So you don't even and then once you're outside of that, you're afraid to do anything because you're not sure if it's okay or not. It's very damaging. It's just stripping away the expression, the originality, the freedom that is inherent to every single one of us. Uh,
Hmm.
so without school, you they're free to explore and to learn according to their interest, according to how they're engaging or what they're engaging with in life. We these brains were built to learn, to absorb. Look at us as adults. How many interests do we find? And we start like, you know, with hypnosis. I can't get enough books and videos and experiences of this, but as kids the same way. But the school system puts it that you learn 8 hours a day, you sit in the same chair and you can't talk out loud, and you have to learn this subject at this time and in this rate and in this way, and you're judged on how well go now. And then we go on to this subject and we go on to this subject. So my son, for example, didn't he learn to read in like 2 weeks? To read in 2 weeks. Math and reading and those kinds of things. Oh, it's such a yeah, it's a process if it's taught like that and you're forced to do it. The reason he learned to, so there's also, there's, like I said, there's a lot of letting go and trusting in this paradigm of parenting and living and unschooling. You have to let go of all that stuff that's been programmed in your head. Like this, they should know how to read by 6 years old, or else they're in trouble, and they're gonna end up in jail. So and not that ending up in jail is a terrible thing.
Mhm.
You know, that's life too. But anyway, so he didn't really get it down like till he was about, well, it happened when he was about 6 or 7 or 8 even, I don't really remember. And it happened because he had that need because his interest and what he was super passionate about was a video game, and he had assignments that he had to complete in that video game, and he kept calling me in and reading them and frustrated because he couldn't just move on with the game. So at some point he called me in and he calls me in because there's one word he didn't understand and how to pronounce it. It was a big word. I don't remember what it was. I wish I did. That'd be cool. But it was this big paragraph. And he reads the whole thing perfectly, flowing. And then he gets to that word. He's like, can you tell me what that word is and what it means? And I'm just like, you know how to read.
Oh, gosh.
So just to show the other side of that, imagine you have an 8-year-old kid. Imagine this in the other paradigm. You have an 8-year-old kid or 7 who doesn't know how to read. He's playing violent video games of war and death pretty much all day, right? And that's
Great.
totally okay. It's actually perfect because he's enjoying himself. He's learning stuff. He's learning how to fucking read from playing a war game. You know? Anyway, so it's things like this that it's completely shifting your expectations and your experience of what you know to be true and has happens for the most part. And that takes courage. That takes guts. It takes trust. But nobody outside of anything, even the experts or Dana Martin or anything, nobody can give you that trust, that courage. The only one is your child or children. Just tuning into them and going, what is going on here? What am I afraid of right now that I'm feeling so resistant and everything? Is it real? Is it true? No, it's all past conditioning and my own shit or what my neighbor says or my mom says or whatever.
Mhm.
Well, my mom's dead, so that would be pretty weird if she did say stuff. But yeah, so it's just that trust, and it's a guarantee. There's nothing like it, and it's just this whole different way of being in life.
Mhm.
And it's enjoying the moment because that's all you ever have. It's
Mhm.
releasing your fear of the future, and it's trusting yourself and your kids. And that filters out into other areas of life. It cannot not do that. There you run into some challenges, but when you know that this is the way for you, you stop caring what other people think.
Mhm.
You trust yourself in how you go with it. For example, some families or people are genuinely interested, so they'll ask questions. Some you can tell they're just judging and they want to know. So you don't, Zunil has gotten really good at this. When we go to the grocery store, oh, what school do you go to? Oh, I'm homeschooled. That's it, right? You don't have to explain it. Some people are genuinely
Yeah.
interested, especially if you're doing a talk about unschooling, you can talk about that. But otherwise, you don't have to prove yourself, and you really do stop caring what other people think. That's what I was going to say that I slipped my mind. Another one of the biggest challenges that I've noticed in supporting people and coaching them in this, and it was a thing with myself until I realized, what the hell am I doing? Is that we can be so hard on ourselves in this sort of, as parents, as a mom especially. oh, I can't believe I said that. That was so limiting his freedom. I should have just, you know? And I'm like, wait a minute, you know, we're human and shit goes down. And
Yeah.
and when kids are raised this way, where there's trust in them and their choices, and they're supported in their interests instead of denied them as a control or whatever, because it's bedtime or because you should be doing this instead, they trust you and they relax. So if you do something terrible or that he feels terrible to you, you could just go later like, hey, I'm really sorry, or I just kind of overreacted. I was in a mood or whatever. And they totally get it. Like, that's okay. You don't have to apologize. And the same happens with them. Like, you know, I
Mhm.
make you food all the time when you ask, even if it's midnight, I'm in bed, I'm in the bath, I ask you for a glass of water and you don't bring it to me. Oh shit, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm, you know, so anyway, those are the inner dynamics. We have a good time. But the other thing is that the danger is that you're constantly monitoring um, them and their choices, right? That's a bit of a control thing too, because like,
Mhm.
well, if something goes wrong, then I'm going to be criticized, and everything I stand for is this, is like, see, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I told you. How many things go wrong with normal paradigm parenting and schooling and all that? Way more, if you ask me. Way more. Because
Yeah.
kids aren't respected. That whole teenage rebellion, if they have nothing to rebel, if you are your kids' best friends, or at least they see you as a friend instead of somebody that they have to hide things from or get approval from, that's where the rebellion starts. And it doesn't just
Mhm.
start at teenage. It starts right when they feel it happening, but it's only when they're teenagers, because they have more authority in themselves, that it starts to come out, because
And they
they're
can
like,
drive.
right, they can drive.
They can run away.
They can go to Mexico and start a bar. So
So I have a question, Giselle. Do you think, because it seems like, ever since the pandemic and
yes,
remote work is now, thought of like, oh, we can do this. We can meet on Zoom. So there's going to be a lot more families, that they continue to just work at home, even when we're, allowed to be back in the office or whatever. So I can see where more families would have choices to do this. But, if we think back to just even prior to a year ago, even if you wanted to like embrace this, ideology of, how to parent and schooling and all of that, if you have to go to a job 8 to 5, 9 to 5, both parents,
yeah,
you're not going to leave your 5-year-old at home, and just say, well, just do whatever
yeah.
you want all day.
No,
So I mean, I can see, it almost seems like it goes along with, the tiny house movement and,
mhm.
you know, people, I mean, yes, school enrollments are dropping for sure. And even more so now, the kids are not returning. Um,
So that's a good question. And
yeah.
before I was totally 100% in it this way, it was also something that I struggled with. But what I've noticed, and I think it's one of those sort of secrets of life, if you will, or just noticing that, and this might just, I don't know, I'm just gonna say it, but when you start tuning into this, it's like life naturally starts to shift, right?
Mm,
It's very
yeah.
hard for you to live in this. It's not very hard. It's possible. Anything's possible. But to live in this kind of freedom and respect, to continue to do something. I know it's like, well, of course you have to work and everything, but you kind of find your own balance in it. So
Mhm.
So perhaps your work starts to look different, or you find another work, or you feel like this is not what I want to be doing with my life. I want to be at home with my children more because that's what I enjoy. And so there you find
Yeah.
ways to do that, or one parent does this, or another parent does that, or another. If you can't do that right away, is find the
Yeah.
community in your area. Because they're always doing stuff, and so they, instead of having to put them in school, you can, drop them off at another unschooling family and, take turns or whatever. There's always ways to do it rather than, I understand you're not going to leave your 5-year-old at home alone. Maybe there's family as well. I don't know. But there's ways. But the biggest thing I've noticed is that it changes for you. I mean, it's pretty difficult to be in this life of trusting yourself, trusting your children, of knowing your inherent rightful freedom to live the life you want to live. And that's how you're raising your kids. And yet you're going 9 to 5 to something.
Yeah, where you're not your authentic self. I can see where this totally would flow into your work life and your marriage.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Everything.
Yeah.
I feel really fortunate that Judith has completely come on board with this. But whenever there was any tension, it was usually about between us, because I had a definite way of letting it go and recognizing for what it was, and feeling that where the fear and the control was still hanging on in him. And that's totally natural. It's not like, oh, you're not as liberated as I am. It's just like, I'm sorry, that I totally understand that you're feeling that. That's another thing about this philosophy, this way of life, is everybody's needs matter equally. Your own, your partners, your children. So I was like, I know this, I feel this, I get it. It's not mine. I don't feel it. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to go through with that. Can you go talk to him because he listens to you? I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't have that same feeling about that you have. It's not mine. I'm really fine with it, and I respect that you do, and I understand that. But you're the one who's going to have to approach it if you want to. You can't ask me to do that. So you start to communicate in ways like you're not blaming. You're kind of like, okay, I can understand that this is a need of yours that's not being met. How can we do this the best way? So you're not being forced to sacrifice, and this goes for the kids' needs as well. You're not being forced to meet our needs because we're the adults and we pay for your existence. So that's why our needs matter more. Kids are the most discriminated humans on the planet. They have absolutely no rights, not even the right to talk if they're told not to. Yeah. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible how children are discriminated. I mean, if an adult is talking and a kid says something, shh, don't interrupt. Having to raise your hand to go to the bathroom, having to have permission to just exist, pretty much. Can I have this? Why do you want that? Oh, do I have to explain to you every single time I want something? And then you have to tell me a million reasons why I can't have it. I mean, it's horrible. Teaching about money is huge. It's so huge. Can I have this? Yes, you can. We can afford it. You can have that. You don't have to explain to me why you want it. You don't have to. Who's going? Are you going, Ilza? Okay. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for such an inspirational
I have to go
I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I'm glad you did. Thank you.
Did really well.
I have to go at about 10 o'clock, Giselle.
Yeah, I know. I'm going till 10. That's great.
Oh, okay.
All right. I'll put up the recording, and I hope I can figure that out. I'll figure it out.
If not, I can help you, maybe.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So that's another thing. Like, just to be honest, I remember growing up, like I was never allowed to know how much my dad made. That was just not okay. What matters is you have everything you need. Yeah, but I can't have everything I want, and I know I can because I know we have money. I'm just curious, like, what level of success as far as money goes are you at? Because I'm like, that's a good thing to strive for. It's not like overwhelmingly too much, but it's plenty. We can take trips. We can do just out of curiosity. So what level nope, never know. He told me like 2 years ago, when I was 47, I finally knew how much my dad made. I'm like, why were you afraid of to tell us that? Like what, so that's another whole thing about money, our relationship to money. So much of that is based on our childhood. How you don't need another one of those. You already have two. So the limitations. So we grew up going, I can't, I really would like another one, but I can't because that's ridiculous. And then you die the next day and there's your money in the bank for nobody. You know what? Whatever. So, he learns that, he understands that it's not a control thing. It's like, there's times I say, listen, that's like the third video game this month. We're doing okay, but I think we have to just take it easy for a moment. No, I know, I absolutely not. He knows my credit card by heart, okay? He knows, because he's used it so many times. He will always come and say, hey, and he'll tell me the story just because he wants to, not because he needs to explain it. And this cool thing I want to get, and it's like, and I'm like, brace myself. I'm like, how much is it? How much is it? It's like, it's $10. Can I buy it? Sure. So, but he has an awareness of that. If we have the money, we're not gonna, we did used to do like chores or whatever so he can earn his money, and he does, and he did that for a while. Now it's just an awareness that he's a kid and he can't really earn money on his own right now. But he understands it, he appreciates it, and he's respectful to it. So now we can literally say, we can't afford that this month, let's wait until next month. And he gets that. He absolutely, thank you. And that's always been the way, because we never say no just out of like control, like maybe he has too much, or maybe we're spoiling him, or we don't have the money when we do have the money, that kind of thing. It's just, he's taught me how to let go more with money, as well. Well, if you, give yourself what you want. If why keep it from yourself? It's a fear of the future that I'm not going to have it in the future. The money, well, it's here now, So anyway, there's a lot of ways that this affects everything. And it's such a more peaceful, respectful, aware way of just being in life. And what I said when at the very beginning, that there's all kinds of on the level, there's all kinds of levels on that. So there is ways to live like this and to understand like this when you're still in school. For example, we had Sunil was in school and then he hated it and he stepped out of it, and then he wanted to go back in to see his friends. But his whole awareness was that my grades are not that important. I mean, he got involved because he just was interested, but we weren't monitoring him and judging him on the grades he got. It didn't matter. It's like, it's going to school like going over to a friend's house to play. That's kind of how we took it, and that's how he took it. So he wasn't like hurt or ruined if the teacher made a bad comment about him or something. It's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. So there are ways to stay in school and to be supported in this in this life as well. There's all ranges. That's what I was saying. There's ranges in it that work, and I'm here to support any and all, no matter where they are in this path. Their challenges are there no matter what, just like they are with anything in life. But they're so much more easier to approach and to go through. And there is support out there, much more than there was in the past. And that's part of what I do. So I'm gonna sorry?
The only doubt
Yeah.
I have is, how does the child know about, I don't know, learning French, learning physics, learning, anything that is offered in school? He doesn't know about it. So
No,
in school,
I can talk to that with just with working with teachers in trying to change the mode of how they teach, which is stand in front, and be the person that has the knowledge, trying to give the knowledge to the kids. It's better to take them out and learn about plants, go out on a hike, show them the part of the flower or whatever, and ask them to have their questions, let them develop those critical thinking skills, how to just learn and engage with your environment. And that's how they learn. So like if you're talking about physics, go go to a race car track or something, and watch force and motion in,
Right.
reality, instead of trying to look at diagrams in a book.
Right, absolutely. And Bridget, why do you think it's important to learn French and physics? I don't know French or physics.
I know physics.
I barely know math, but
I know.
So you cannot offer it to your child, but maybe that's something which would interest him if he would have the offer and
yeah.
if somebody
If they want to learn.
bring it to him.
So you can offer. So that's another interesting thing. It's like one of the critics of this lifestyle, which I was going to go into, but I'll do that another time. That the assumptions of what this lifestyle is about is, one of them is lazy parenting. Like you just let your kids do whatever they want, and that's just being a lazy parent, which is completely the opposite. It takes much more engagement and awareness in that. So
no, I understand all of that.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
if you wanted to, you just bring stuff into their life, right? And they, I want to learn French. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Physics. Maybe if you bring physics in whatever way you bring it, they are absolutely not interested. But then, like Carol said, you take them to go see a race car or like, and they're like, well, how is that possible? So then you say, oh, that's actually physics, and then like that, he learned a lot about math by just baking. And here's another thing that it's really extreme is that, and also by playing video games, because he needed to know how much he needed to save up to
I have to jump off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for being here.
Okay. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
So yeah, so it's in some cases you see like unschooling families and freedom parenting families, their kids are going out in the forest every day and building huts, or they're making silk dresses from the sewing machine, or painting or baking, or going to the animals and the shelter, and there's some, like was in the case with mine, that just watched and played video games pretty much all day for a really long time. And now the thing is, when they're allowed their freedom without no limitations, I mean, it's keeping them safe and everything. We made sure that he was healthy and that he was eating, and they pulled him out in the sun for 5 minutes, a day, just to get some sunlight and that kind of thing. But for the rest, they regulate. As an adult, have you ever gotten lost in something where you forget to eat, you forget to go to the bathroom? I mean,
yeah, of course.
It's wonderful. I don't think everybody has, but everybody should. I mean, it could be anything, reading, arts, music, whatever. Could you imagine if somebody was checking? I mean, this is when you're feeling so alive and free, and your mind's engaged, your body, and all of a sudden somebody's like, all right, that's enough. You've been on there way too long. Time to go. Go for a walk, because you need to go for a walk. It's healthy. So they learn to regulate. He now will, without us ever telling, he'll come out, take breaks every hour or so, because he wants to. We've never made him do that. He'll come out, he'll sit with us, he'll have a conversation. Okay, I'm gonna go back in and play now for a bit. See you later.
But now he's only just with the two of you, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he's alone, so he's not surrounded with other kids. That's also something.
No, he's got his friend here, and he, look at our life now because of COVID. Most of our communication and friendships are online, and that's no different if you play video games, So yeah, the world is changing, and also this is really useful to know and to be supported in, especially when the kids are home all day and the parents are feeling the pressure to have to be teachers, and they don't have to. They really don't. There's another way to do that feels good for everybody. I mean, I truly believe parenting is made to be a pleasurable experience. And and this has really made that come to life in our worlds. It really has. We were so stressed out before. We worried about everything, and he was miserable in school and crying and
Really?
yeah, I was like, what are we gonna do? Can we give him back? How do we take this back? I don't want a kid anymore.
Oh my God.
I know, right? So, but now it's just been a blessing. I'm really grateful to have come into this, and that's why I support people and I do it for others, because it's a game changer for sure.
Yeah, of course, a big game changer.
Yeah.
My kids went to, Montessori.
Yes, I do know. Yeah.
They went to some schools in the first 4 years. That was nice too. It was not so competition.
Right,
shit.
right. Yeah, he was in a Waldorf-based school.
Really?
Yeah, and he still had that. This kid, his mother's child, man, born a free spirit. He's like, I am not taking anyone's authority over anything.
Yeah. My kids were like that too. My boys. My daughter not. She was more straight. She also went to this Montessori school, but she's a teacher now.
No, that's funny. Yeah, and that's the thing. You could go and become a teacher too, and who knows? Who knows? That's the thing. And you're not constantly, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's like, I'm already something. See, the focus on the future, the focus on pressure. Oh, I need to find an interest. That's another thing. Like, once you pick something, you stick to it your whole life. Life isn't like that anymore. You know, it's we how many things have I done in my life that have nothing to do with each other? I mean, maybe they do in the big picture kind of way, but so anyway, it's just a whole different life, and we have to let go of how we've been doing it, because it's not working. This is an interesting example. If you look at the phones we had when we were kids, right? That's, remember those phones that you pick up and you have that
yeah.
So that was like what, 30 years ago, maybe? Not that much, right? 30, something like that. And now look at this. Look at that.
Computer.
It's a freaking computer in your hand. What, you can do anything in the world on this thing in your pocket. Okay, look how in 30 years, look how much that has changed. There's no cords, there's nothing, How has school changed in the last 100 years? It's exactly the same. Dominating, structure, force feed, education, judgment, control, comparing. It's done.
You're right.
It's done.
You're right.
And it's not any different when you sit them in front of the computer and do the same thing, just because, oh, now it's modern technology. No, it's the same shit. We just gotta either, there's other ways to learn that are much more joyful and effective. I mean, I don't remember anything I learned in high school or junior high or elementary. I mean, fractions. I wish I had remembered fractions, because that's something that's kind of helpful in the world, but not that helpful. And now we got this. If I don't know it, this knows. So yeah, it's different times for sure.
True, yeah.
So I'm going to mention something here, since I'm going to post this, that I'm offering coaching for 4 weeks, 4 Thursdays, starting next Thursday. And if you go on my website, www.radicalfreedomhypnosis.com, and you go to my Radical Freedom Parenting tab, the offer is there. So it's $30 for 4 hours of coaching, 1 hour a week, starting this Thursday. So I will post that later, but I just wanted, since I'm going to post the recording, if anybody watches it this far, that they know that, and that you know that, in case you know anybody that can use the support. And I'm going to stop recording now. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Did I lose you? Okay. So, yeah, thank you for your attention. And let me just stop that recording and for being here. Oh, I already did stop. No.